Pet Sematary 2 is a movie I saw in the theaters over 30 years ago. Never saw it since, and I have never remembered a single frame from this movie. And I took advantage of this deal for Max, where you could get 6 months for $2.99 a month for Black Friday. I did that, and I noticed Pet Sematary 2 was on there. And I decided, hey, why not watch this? And after I watched it, we got to talk about Pet Sematary 2.
What are you doing, man? I'm just fucking with you. Stop it, man!
Pet Sematary 2 stars Edward Furlong, Anthony Edwards, Clancy Brown, and is directed by Mary Lambert. What's up, guys? Welcome to the latest catalog review. I love doing catalog movies, deep cut movies, and we're going to review Pet Sematary 2. Excited to review this one. And also, I want to dedicate this to one of my patrons, David B. I told him I was going to dedicate a future video to him. If you're of a certain tier, then I can dedicate a review to you. And I just want to say thank you to my patrons who are constantly keeping me afloat and are just some of the coolest freaking people you could possibly meet. So, David B., this one's for you. And Pet Sematary 2. Wow, I literally just finished watching this. Like I said, it's on Max right now. You can watch it. Also, shout out to Brandon Tabato. I know he loves this movie. I see him post about it all the time. Maybe that's part of it too. Subconsciously, Brandon was telling me, watch this movie again. And I did. And I'm glad I did, because Pet Sematary 2, it's pretty damn fun. It's not perfect by any means, and it's got some silly stuff in it, but I like that this one takes what we learned from the previous movie and injects some steroids in it. And you get to see like an adult person that comes back from the grave, and what will they do? Because remember, at the end of Pet Sematary, we saw the wife come out and she kills the husband at the end, but we never really got to see anything after that. It was more about the kid, Gage, being, coming back from the dead, right? And that's creepy. When you see a kid, Gage was one of the scariest freaking characters in horror history. He freaked me out. I saw both Pet Sematary movies in the theater. So maybe that's a testament to it too, because when I saw this in the theater, it just didn't really make that much of a mark on me like the first one did. So the first one's definitely the better movie, but this one's still really fun, and I'd say far better than the remake that came out a couple years ago. So anyway, let's dive in. Let's give you a quick plot synopsis. It takes place in the same town as the first movie, and you got this new family. Anthony Edwards plays Chase. He is the father of Jeff, played by Edward Furlong, who is pretty much our main character. They moved to this town because Chase's wife just passed away on a terrible onset accident. She's this famous actress, and she gets electrocuted and she dies. So they moved to this town because they don't want to live in Hollywood where they're constantly getting badgered. They just want to move to a quiet town, somewhere where they can kind of forget about it. Well, they moved to the wrong town because apparently you can bring people back from the dead. And I think that's one cool thing about these Pet Sematary movies is whoever dies early on in the movie, that thought is looming in your head. Are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? And of course, they do it. This is a catalog thought. I'm going to talk spoilers, all right? Deal with it. Like any Stephen King property, although I don't think Stephen King actually had any part in writing this. If he did, let me know in the comments. I don't think he did. But Mary Lambert, who directed the previous movie, directed this one. So there's this other family. You got this single mother, and she's living with this guy, Gus, played by the great Clancy Brown. I can't remember if they're actually married in the movie or not. I don't think they are. I think he's just living. But he's wanting to take on a father role to the son, Drew, played by Jason McGuire. And Drew, he befriends Jeff. And so then that's where it kind of takes on this, a little bit of maybe like a Stand By Me type vibe, just a little. You even have like the bullies with this guy who is pretty much the miniature version of Kiefer Sutherland, who is bullying Jeff. And he's a complete asshole. I like in these movies when they have the bully that's almost three-dimensional. They're not, I guess they're not the normal type of bully that you would see. They're more of a caricature than a character. They do things that we would never think that they would do. Like this kid, Jeff, his mother just died. And this bully is using that fact against him.
What do you think, Jeff? Maybe you could go dig up your old lady, bury her back there?
And provoking him, making fun of him. even physically abusing him, which is insane. And I'm sure this stuff does happen. It does happen, but still, in movies, you got to really inject it with some verisimilitude, I guess. Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Maybe cinematic license, right? Edward Furlong, this was the movie that he did right after Terminator 2. And he was kind of like the it kid there for a while. I guess right around the same time that Macaulay Culkin was, getting really big. But Edward Furlong never reached the heights of Macaulay Culkin. I don't think he was getting the paychecks that Macaulay Culkin was getting. I don't think a lot of my younger viewers realize how big Macaulay Culkin was back in the day. Like, he was massive. But Edward Furlong definitely had a following at the time, and I think he just made some bad career choices down the line. I'll even say, I thought, good-looking kid, got a bright future ahead of him, and I saw big things coming for Edward Furlong, but it just didn't work out that way. But he's still very likable, very charismatic in this role, and I think he steers the ship quite well, being that he's the main character. Clancy freaking Brown, I think, steals the show in this movie, and he's really the anchor of this movie, At least in terms of the horror, because he's already a dick, and there's this kind of notion that your characteristic traits are going to be amplified when you come back from the grave. And if you're a dick, then you're going to be even more of a dick. Kind of like the Incredible Hulk, right? Remember Fry's Hulk in the episode The First, and he was the bad Hulk? And his personality was amplified. He had like murderous tendencies. And so his Hulk was even more of that. Whereas David Banner, he was a nice guy, right? He wanted to help people. And so the Hulk didn't want to kill people. So same type deal here. But I like that in the middle of this movie, there's a dog that is brought back to life. And then they realize, okay, we can bring things back to life. And then there's just an incident on Halloween when Gus, he's wondering why Drew hasn't come home yet. And so he catches Jeff and Drew out at the pet cemetery. An accident happens and the dog attacks him. They're kids and they got to figure out how to fix this mess. So what do? They bury him in the pet cemetery. Horrible idea. And then he comes back. And this is where the movie really gets interesting and fun. Just watching this character do some really wild and crazy shit, like he's skinning the rabbits one by one outside. He sexually assaults the wife. I didn't want to say the other word because I don't know, YouTube doesn't like that word. But, it's just fun watching this character do these crazy, horrible things throughout. And Clancy Brown, he freaking sells it.
Why did you dig up my wife?
Because I wanted to fuck her.
And then later in the movie, they use him to bury the mother. Because Jeff, he becomes obsessed because he misses his mother so much and he wants to bring his mother back. Any kid that loses a mother, they want their mother back. And that's the great thing about Pet Sematary is these characters, they get consumed with this what if thought. What if I can bring them back and they can be normal? There's always that chance, right? And so they want to take that chance. And he gets Gus to bury his mother. That final act in the attic with the mother flipping out and going crazy is just gold. And you got some really cool, memorable lines in that scene. Like when she tells Jeff that her and the father were working it out. Hilarious stuff, gallows humor. I love that type of stuff in these horror movies.
Father and I are trying to work things out!
Some might say it goes a little bit overboard, especially when the bully is brought back too. But I like that stuff, I think if you're gonna go wild in these zany, crazy horror movies, then just go for it. And that's what they do. Because this movie's not winning any Oscars anyway, right? And it's a horror movie. It's definitely bloodier than the previous movie. And I think it's fun. That's what Pet Sematary 2 is. It's fun. It's not like groundbreaking or anything, but boy, does it hold your attention. And I think there's so much more brought to the table in terms of the whole idea of Pet Sematary and the rules of the game and how it's used quite a bit and just focusing in on what an adult character would act like for like half of a movie. And Clancy Brown just freaking kills it. It's so awesome. Clancy Brown should have won an Oscar like ages ago, He's one of the best character actors ever. He's still working today, thank God. And I love Clancy Brown. Definitely check out Bad Boys, directed by Rick Rosenthal, starring Sean Penn, not the one with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Clancy Brown is so damn good in that movie. You hate his freaking guts. And you'll never forget the pillowcase with the soda cans. That's all I'm gonna say. So I'm giving Pet Sematary 2 a high purchase worthy for sure. Really fun time with this movie. Definitely check it out if you haven't. It's on Max. Also be sure to come over to Killer Flicks where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays we do Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums and on my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. And speaking of Buy Me a Coffee, another shout out to David B. He's bought me some coffees, but also Brian, the Pumpkin King 13. Wanted to throw a big shout out to him as well on Buy Me a Coffee because that's just another way to support the channel. Appreciate that, guys. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching and Drumdum out.